Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm your host Terry. Happy New Year to everybody. It's New Year's Day. I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to do a video today, but I thought I would because I had a few thoughts I wanted to share. And I'm going to be going back out tomorrow. I got a load, and I don't have to leave the house very early, so it's all good. I get one load in before payroll cutoff, so I wasn't negative last week, so that was cool. And I'll probably be negative this week, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I was talking about in my previous video how 2023 for a huge number of reasons was like the worst year of my life. And to add insult to injury, I got some vaccines on Saturday. And I'm not here to promote getting vaccines. You get them if you want them. But anyway, I was my wife said, oh, some people at work were, one person had COVID, another person had RSV, and so I was like, yeah, maybe I should get some booster or whatever. And so the first place I tried to go, they said, oh, we don't take your insurance. And so I went to this other place that does take our insurance, and they offered, instead of 3, which I was going to get at the first place, they offered 4. So I was like, yeah, let's go for it. So, and one of the things that I've noticed about getting older is I don't remember. You don't really remember how strong you were when you were, say, in your 20s, when you're like now in your 60s. And, it's possible to bite off more than you could chew. So anyway, I was like, so they had the COVID booster or COVID update, I guess. I'll call it COVID 2.0. And then I got a flu vaccine, which in the past I've never really done. But I was like, if I get the flu, I'm going to regret not getting this. And then I got an RSV vaccine, which is recommended for people in my age cohort, over 60. And the last one I got was the shingles vaccine. And we've had a couple of friends that have had shingles. And I had chickenpox as a kid, and I'm old enough that they didn't even have a chickenpox vaccine when I was a kid. But I got all the other, German measles, mumps, typhoid, polio vaccine. I've gotten all those, and then I certainly got a whole host of vaccines when I was in the military for lots of stuff. But the pharmacist comes out and she's like, hey, you've scheduled yourself for 4 vaccines today. She goes, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, I was in the Navy. I mean, shouldn't be a big deal. She's like, okay, because you may feel a little under the weather, tomorrow. So she gives me the 4 vaccines, and it was free. So it's like, 4 for $0. I was like, all right, that's cool. So so that was Saturday. So Sunday, which was yesterday. Well, actually Saturday night I started feeling body aches and stuff. And then yesterday I wasn't feeling great. And we went to a New Year's Eve party. And I was like, I'm not sure I should drink, because if I drink and then I feel worse, I'm going to be hating myself. And then my wife was like, hey, I need you to drive home anyway because I'm tired. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a good excuse not to drink, even though I brought my friend a bottle of Bullet Bourbon. I bought one for me, one for him, and I haven't had a chance to try it. And he bought some Jack Daniels for me, and again, I just drank Diet Coke. So then this morning I got up, and and when I took a shower, I noticed my lymph nodes were like more swollen than I've ever experienced before. Like, it was noticeable. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they're the glands that are in your armpits. There are other places in your body, but I think the big ones are there in your armpits. So I was like, oh, that's weird. So I texted a friend of mine who's a doctor. Okay, he's a PhD botanist, but I figure he's a smart guy. He'll know. No, actually, he's an anesthesiologist. And he called me. He was on his way back from a bike ride. He called me, and I said, I just think this is because I introduced all these, foreign substances into my body. And by the way, the reason
my original video was taken down because YouTube said that I was spreading medical misinformation. And far be it from me to spread medical misinformation. I was actually joking about rumors that went around about the original vaccines, and it wasn't my intention to piss the people off at YouTube algorithms. So anyway, that's why you're hearing my voiceover, and hopefully this will satisfy them and they won't take this video down.
But I said, does this sound alarming to you? He's like, nah. He goes, if it doesn't go away in a week or so, you might want to talk to your primary care. He said, but he goes, then he said, because he's younger than I am, and he said, 4 vaccines in a day is that's a pretty big ask of your body. I was like, yeah, I kind of went, went overboard, I guess, but what's done is done. So anyway, I've been feeling a little under the weather, but I am treating with Diet Coke, and he said Diet Coke, it's not going to hurt you. Although he did tell me I could have some bourbon. He goes, it's probably not going to make you feel worse. But so that's what I'm up to. And here's my Iowa football cup. This I'm sure is a defensive player. It says fight for Iowa. It also does not anywhere on here say throw a pick 6. Iowa's finishing up the season right now against Tennessee. Maybe the game's over. It's kind of an apropos game. It's kind of a microcosm of the whole season. Anyway, that's that. So so getting back to New Year's, it's New Year's Day, and I was reading about Janice, and you say, who's she? Well, actually, Janice is a he, Janus. And Janus was a Roman god, and he was basically the god of the new year. But really, he was more than that. And if you know, I'm sure you've seen Janus's figure. It's the guy with, basically, it's like 2 heads looking in opposite directions. And the symbolism is that Janus looks at the past and looks to the future. And the idea that anything that's a change, that's what's happening, right? Like we know what happened, and we think what's going to happen in the future. And the Romans were really into understanding their environment and understanding that the past is prologue. Sometimes I've had people in the past say, well, why study history? And I'm like, because history does repeat itself. And the ancient Romans understood this. And Janus is interesting in that there are a lot of Roman gods like Mars, Jupiter, that have Greek antecedents. Janus does not have a Greek antecedent. And by the way, the word January comes from Janus's name. He is the god of the new year. But the other thing that was interesting to me is that in the Roman Forum, right, or the Forum of the Gods, there are lots of monuments or shrines to the gods. And there's one in there for Janus. But the interesting thing about Janus's shrine is that it's basically just a passageway through the center of the forum. And it's gated on both ends. And in ancient Rome, when Rome was at peace, in other words, they weren't fighting any enemy countries or monarchies or anything, when they were at peace, the gates were closed, because at peace, that was not a time of significant change. But when they were at war, the gates were opened, because the war would be a significant change. And, you know, you think about all the changes that the United States went through because of wars. Like, what was the result of the Civil War? What was the result of World War I, World War II, Vietnam? Every war has had an impact on what we did after it. So I just thought that was a little interesting, but that's where the term January comes, or the word January comes from, is the god Janice, the god of the new year. So because it's a new year, you know, sometimes people do resolutions. And I was thinking about resolutions, and I have made a couple of resolutions, but really, I don't like the word resolution as much as I like the word goal. And I'm not a big fan of the word dreams. Not that I don't mean dreams exist, right? Like people have dreams in their sleep, but people also dream of something that they want. But as I told my daughter recently, I said, it was when she was on my truck over the summer. I said, dreams are what people have while they're sleeping, and goals are what people work on while they're awake. And she said, oh, that sounds like a quote from a really good book. And I'm like, yeah, it's called The World According to Tim Travels. And she was like, oh. So I hope you think about that for a second. Dreams are what people have when they're asleep. Goals are what people work on when they're awake. And if you're in the trucking business, and I don't care whether you're a truly, you know, an independent operator, independent contractor, whether you're leasing a truck, whether you're lease purchasing a truck, whether you're a company driver, if you drove the entirety of 2023, you have gone through a lot of difficulty in probably several different ways. And I always feel like difficulty makes you stronger. Now, I don't necessarily think that, you know, that some things that don't kill you make you stronger. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think if you get paralyzed falling into the Grand Canyon, it really didn't make you stronger, but you did survive it. But I do think that if you've come this far, you know, I saw a video, I think it was, anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, I was thinking that 2024 could be worse, but the odds that it's gonna be worse than 23 are very slim. And here's why I say that. Because even if 24 is technically worse from maybe a trucking business, trucking industry perspective, it doesn't mean it's going to be worse for you or for me. And the reason I say that is because we've already experienced 23. You know how when you go down a gravel road and it's all potholes and everything and it's all tore up, and you know the vehicle's just like, when you get to a paved road, even if it's not a great paved road, it's still better than what you were on. And you're like, oh, this is better. It's not a great road, but it's still, you know, it's not perfect, but it's better than what I was on. And I feel like that's how 2024 is going to be for a lot of people. It's going to be better than it was. It might not be great, but better sometimes is all we can ask for, all we can hope for. And it's going to lift our spirits and hopefully improve our bank accounts. So I haven't looked at my final numbers for 2023. I mean, I don't think they're going to be good. And part of the reason is because at Prime, they do this thing that's a little bit irksome with the weekly statements. And that is that they always give you three numbers in your P&L, in your statement of cash flow, profit and loss. They give you the weekly numbers, weekly gross, weekly that was paid out to you, etc., right? And then they give you a lease to date number, and then they give you a year to date number. Now, depending on when you leased your truck, the lease to date number could be shorter time frame than the year to date, or vice versa. In my case, I leased my current truck, my Peterbilt, in May. So, like, just looking at the very last statement for the year will not give me my year-to-date numbers. It'll give me my lease-to-date, but the lease-to-date and year-to-date will be the same. I don't like that because it's not like I started contracting with Prime in May. So what I have to do is go back and dig out the statements from my last statement from my Freightliner to really see the whole year. But, you know, I'm not going to be pleasantly surprised. It may not be as bad as I thought, but I don't think it'll be appreciably better than I think it's going to be. But I want to start out, I started out in the hole last year because I had a breakdown right after I got back on the road. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year. Last year I've had 2 incidents. I hit a deer and then I was hit by a hit and run hot shotter in Iowa. So there was $2,000 right off the top from my revenue. Little things like that. If I just a few things go a little bit better, this year will be better for me, and I think it will be better for you. At least that's my hope. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is like, well, I wanted to show you something. This is totally divergent from the subject, but hey, that's what I do, right? I just went out and fed our chickens. As my wife called me, she's like, "Oh, can you go feed the chickens?" Because she didn't feed them before she left this afternoon, or this morning. And I went out and fed them, and guess what I found? Take a look. Yeah, that's a half a dozen eggs that I got out of our chicken house today. And here's why that's pretty cool, and maybe it's like this cool harbinger of fortune to come in the coming year, is because laying chickens typically don't lay a lot of eggs in the wintertime because of the daylight. And the other thing is we don't have that many chickens. We had some killed by, I don't know, some predator, or maybe a couple of predators a while back. So I think we only have, and I'm not the chicken mom, but I think we only have like half a dozen chickens left. And the other thing, these girls are kind of older, right? They're not, as people would say, spring chickens. And so the fact that they laid 6 eggs, and we got 2 eggs from them earlier when I was home, but the fact that they laid 6 eggs, and it might have been a couple of days since we collected eggs, because we feed them, but then, they sleep a lot in the wintertime. But, it might have been 2 days worth, but it's still pretty amazing that we got half a dozen eggs in, over 3 or 4 days because you may not know this, but chickens at chicken laying operations, they're in constant light. So they just think that's how the world is. But we don't do that with our chickens. Our chickens kind of just do their own thing, and they lay some eggs and we get the eggs. But anyway, I just thought that was like a New Year's miracle or something. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. So anyway, getting back to 2023, Miss Mother Trucker, Prime driver, she was talking about, 2024 going to be a good year to maybe like get into trucking. And I don't know the answer to that, but you should check out her video. But I would say that if you've, and I'm kind of loath to use this word, but if you've survived 2023 and you haven't been foreclosed on, you haven't had your car repoed, whatever it is that you're working for, if you've survived 2023, then, like I said, I'm optimistic about a lot of things. I think that 2024 is going to be better. there's still going to be some fleshing out of things in the industry. There's still going to be some people that walk away from it. And, you know, if you make it through the winter and things get better, and, you know, you might be rewarded for kind of your perseverance and your goal setting. So anyway, that's my message for New Year's. It's an opportunity to start anew. We used to have a saying when I was in the financial services industry, you know, if you want to have a good year, have a good January. I think part of having a good January in trucking is playing it smart. And a good January means you get to February without your truck being in a ditch or you being in a pileup or something, you know, someplace. And while I've been home, I've watched so many like live weather videos, and I'm just like, you know, like you see like 20 trucks where the first 20 trucks in a line made contact with each other. And I'm just like, and you look at the road and it's white. And I'm like, why are people running like that? And I don't know what, I honestly don't know what the answer is. And I can't even believe it's money, because there can't be that much money taking that much risk. So having a good January is making a little bit of money, not being negative, and, you know, keeping your truck out of the body shop. That's my version of a good January. So anyway, today's the 1st of January. I'll be back out tomorrow. And yeah, everybody be safe. Have a good month. And I'll be back soon. And we'll talk about some more like trucking stuff and some more history. All right, talk to you soon.